In early 2007, there was a bombshell announcement that was heard in the swine industry. Smithfield Foods, and then later Maple Leaf Foods, announced that they were switching their swine operations over from individual gestation stall sow housing to group housing. These two companies represent two of the largest swine producers in North America. Smithfield also announced that they expected it would take a decade to make the change. First, because of the cost. Secondly, they needed to retrain employees to manage sows in these kinds of operations, and they needed to modify their equipment and convert it to their existing operations. In essence, retrofit those buildings. And then lastly, and something that most people wouldn't think of, is that the concern was to modify sow behavior. Now, there really wasn't an economic reason for Smithfield or Maple Leaf to announce this change. I believe they made it because of concern for animal welfare and also the public's perception of animal welfare. Even though there is clear-cut research to demonstrate that there are more problems during pregnancy in sows with group housing, and there's more pigs born alive in group housing, the issue is that their concern for animal welfare is that younger sows do better in gestation stall housing than do older sows. Older sows, as they get older, tend to get bigger, and they don't fit the stalls as well as those younger sows do. It also complements the issues too that food animal veterinarians also raise. Food animal veterinarians such as myself that are concerned about the welfare of their charges. If those large sows can't adapt to gestation stalls, they end up being removed from the herd, or in some instances managers will stuff them in the stalls anyway, and the industry can do better than that. I applaud this concern by these two companies because clearly it's going to reduce sow profitability. The industry practices are changing, and I believe these two companies want to be at the forefront and lead the charge as we make those changes. The Humane Society of the United States is urging the industry to make the change to group housing in 5 years rather than 10. But I believe this is unrealistic thinking. Let's look at the big picture here a little bit. In sow housing infrastructure, all of the old equipment needs to be torn out of these buildings and the buildings retrofitted to group housing. Now, it makes sense that equipment lasts about 10 or 12 years, so therefore as equipment wears out, it makes sense to change that to the new facilities as it can occur. It doesn't make sense, though, to take new equipment and change it to group housing now. Secondly, employees need to be retrained. Sows in group housing require different feeding practices and different monitoring than those do that have individual sow housings. Furthermore, we also have to look at sow genetics. Over the years, the consumer has demanded lean pork, and the pork industry has responded with their genetic selection of producing pigs that are lean. However, that's meant also that they've had lean, sleek sow selection. And these sows are really a thing of beauty. They have long bodies, large mammary glands, with the ability to feed lots of pigs with plentiful amounts of food to allow those pigs to grow rapidly. And these sows also have the propensity to get pregnant easily and early. In essence, they bred a sow that was a lean bacon-making machine. However, while we think about that lean bacon-making machine, let me tell you what's really happened, and that is we've made a lean bacon-making mean machine. Because you see, these sows are crabby. They have a propensity to fight. They're poor buddies for their pinmate mamas. They're not friendly bedfellows to the other sows. If we were to put these sows together, this modern day sow we have now, I can tell you what it's going to be like. It's going to be like 3 or 4 women in a mud wrestling contest, desperate for the first prize, which is a date with George Clooney. Now, I will tell you that even though they've got to change the genetics of these sows so they're not so crabby, you can't totally eliminate some of the crabbiness. And so it means that even though they modify the genetics, they're probably still going to need some gestation stalls for those sows that tend to be crabby. And then eventually, obviously, those sows they'll continue to select so that they're selecting for a friendlier and kinder sow. I tell my wife, too, that it's crabbiness. It's all in my genetics. So basically, we need a fatter and kinder kind of sow. Something that's not going to happen all at once because this isn't what we've bred sows for. The real challenge, though, is as we replace this equipment, is the greater vulnerability to timid sows losing pregnancies in group housing. These sows that are aggressive tend to play like schoolyard bullies. They give no quarter. They steal every bite of feed they can. They bite, push, and the timid sows are at risk. There's a fine line between those sows having free rein and being able to take a stroll around the exercise area and get along with the other sows. Today, the public realizes that they no longer can rely on government regulations and regulators to establish guidelines for animal welfare. And so they vote their opinions, and they insist that the food they purchase has animal welfare certification standards. They also demand that restaurants and grocery stores follow up on those animal welfare issues. Unfortunately, the public bases animal welfare mostly on emotion and anthropomorphism, rather than research-based science that truly demonstrates sound animal welfare standards. Well, that's it from here. I'm Dr. Sanders. I'll see you down the road.